Hello there, duelists. Everyone likes card games on motorcycles, right? Well, today we have the archetype that was born to ride, with Synchrons on the playmat. Piloted, obviously, by the legendary Yusei from the 5D's anime, these warriors and machines have been fan favourites since their introduction. However, after being repeatedly smacked down on the ban list from other decks utilising, the cards that basically made up a lot of this deck, Synchrons have been better. But they can still field a decent board on a good play. So let's fire up the engine and see what's going on under the hood. Okay, so into the monsters, which obviously makes up quite a high proportion of this deck. Like quite a few of my decks on this channel, and also quite like a lot of the kind of synchro-based archetypes. So first up, we've got 3 Junk Synchrons. So this guy, he kind of disappeared for a bit. I suppose in about 5 years ago or whatever, between 5 years and now. But he's recently become much more prevalent and kind of like our main tuner, really. So normal summoned, target level 2 or lower monster in your graveyard, special summon it. From there, we're running Junk Converter, which I think is probably the thing that's making Junk Synchron kind of a bit more playable. So you can discard him and a tuner to add a synchro monster from your from your deck to your hand. And then if he's sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, you can special summon a tuner monster back from the graveyard. So he's a solid all-rounder, and the general thing is use him, discard a tuner, search for Junk Synchron, summon Junk Synchron, synchro, summon back whatever tuner you've got in the graveyard. So it's just a solid, quite linear strategy into your opening play. From there, we're running 3 Synchron Carrier, which again I think was one of the more recent-ish cards. I didn't play it when I originally built this deck, but it gives you an extra normal summon of a Synchron monster. So again, kind of facilitating that Junk Synchron play. Also, while he's on the field and you synchro into a warrior or machine type synchro monster, you can summon a level 2 token, which can be quite useful. From there, running the standard go-to with Synchrons, and that's Dopplewarrior. So when a monster special summon from the graveyard, you can special summon this guy from your hand. If he's sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, you get to summon 2 Doppel tokens that are level 1. From there, we've got another, I suppose, an extender, which is 3 Caligo Crow. So this was actually in the Yusei starter deck from ages ago. I didn't even know the card existed really, but I'm running it now in a few decks. I think it's actually just a reasonably good extender. If you draw a dark monster, you can special summon it from your hand. It's level 2, which means that stuff like if your Junk Synchron gets disrupted, you can still plough through if you've got this in your hand. Although multiples in hand isn't exactly ideal. From there, we're running a couple of one of Synchron monsters, so running the 1 Road Synchron, which basically just becomes level 2 if you don't use it to go into Road Warrior, and if it attacks at the end of the damage step, increase its level by 1, which doesn't come up because you're always using it basically as soon as you've got it. From there, we've got 1 Satellite Synchron, 1 Fleur Synchron, and 1 Cyberse Synchron. So Cyberse Synchron is actually a new one for me. I had only recently added it, but you just kind of need that level 1 sometimes. So you can target a level 4 or lower monster you control and boost its level by 2. And then if a monster in the extra deck zone will be destroyed, you can banish it from the graveyard instead. So it's got reasonable synergy. Fleur Synchron is actually probably the one that I use the most. If it's sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, you can special summon a level 2 or lower monster from your hand, which is just a great extender. And then Satellite Synchron, it's a weird one. I have considered cutting it a bit, but basically it's got the same kind of Doppelwarrior effect. If a monster's summoned from the graveyard, you can special summon it from your hand. And then also, if you've got a warrior, Stardust, or something else on the field or in the graveyard, then you can make its level become 4. From there, we're running a couple of one-offs, just as kind of like non-tuner extenders. So the Boost Warrior and the Qullbolt Hedgehog. Boost Warrior obviously can just special summon itself from the hand, and Qullbolt Hedgehog, if it's in the graveyard, you can special summon it, and it's banished if it leaves the field after that. From there, I'm running a quick substitution engine, which, extension engine, should I say. So this is Guitars and the mics. So play Guitaar in your Pendulum Zone, discard a card, which can often be quite beneficial for the deck, to summon the mics gives you an extra normal summon. Obviously you can't get 2 additional normal summons with, you know, mics and the Synchron Carrier, but still an extra summon is obviously ideal. And then finally we're running 3 Effect Veiler. You can pick whatever hand trap I suppose you want. I think level 1 kind of works in here, also fits with Yusei. So yeah, it's not bad, but you can substitute whatever you want for this spot. Alright, so we don't have that many spells, but I suppose it's worth a blast through. So 3 tuning, which is our kind of rotor, and also occasionally you get that Yu-Gi-Oh God moment of when you mill something like Qullbolt Hedgehog or something like that, which obviously works out really well. From there, running 2 Pot of Avarice, which I think is a good way of just, you know, recycling your extra deck mostly, but can also, you know, obviously give you the additional draws. And from there, we're running a bunch of one-offs. I'm running 1 Call by the Grave. If there was at 3, you'd be running 3. You just really want to max out this card. Again, Disruption is a bit annoying for this deck, especially with some of the choke points. 1 Upstart Goblin to kind of increase that consistency. 1 Foolish Burial for, you know, kind of searchability and toolbox nature. 1 1-for-1 and Reinforcement of the Army for basically the same reason. And then a couple of kind of extension cards. 1 Monster Reborn and 1 Magnet Reverse. So Reverse can special summon back any of your Synchro machine type monsters. You could argue that, you know, I don't know, Living Fossil might be I suppose a more versatile selection here, but I quite like the Magnet Reverse. Okay, and onto the extra deck. So I'm running 1 Formula Synchron. So when it's summoned, you can draw a card and then you can synchro summon your opponent's turn. It doesn't come up that often, and I think that you could definitely cut it. I have actually ended up cutting the Blazar Dragon, which, you know, Formula Synchron was kind of crucial for. I still think it's, you know, not bad, but I think its utility has gone down. I actually really like Celestial Double Star Shaman, which we're also running 1 of. So this is when it's synchro summon, you can special summon up to 4 level 2 or non-tuner 4 level 2 non-tuner monsters from your hand or graveyard in the first position. You can't special summon except by synchro summon for the rest of the turn, but it's still solid. It puts a lot of like things on board in order to, you know, to be able to extend with. And then finally the 1 Martial Metal Marcher. It's kind of our lower level stuff. Martial Metal Marcher is obviously seen a vast reduction in play, but it's still very solid here. You know, special summon something back, he just kind of keeps you going. From there, I'm running 1 Crystron Quandax as kind of like a, you know, level 4 Synchro Tuner, and then also a Herald of the Arclight. You've got to be careful when you go to Herald of the Arclight because it kind of stops some of your plays, you know, because everything gets banished instead of, you know, going to the graveyard. Finally, we're on to the, you know, level 5, so we're Junk Speeder, Excel Synchron, and TG Hyper Librarian. So I think Excel Synchron, let's go first because he's a bit more fringe. He can, you know, synchro summon your opponent's turn. He can increase or decrease level by sending a Synchron monster from your deck to your graveyard. So he's a solid addition. I wouldn't say he's crucial, but I think he's still well worth playing. Junk Speeder and Hyper Librarian are where the soul of this deck really lies. So you really are hitting Junk Speeder, kind of that's your first port of call. And I think you kind of want to get your opponent to disrupt you before going to Junk Speeder if you can possibly manage it. But basically what he does is he can summon as many Synchron monsters from the deck as possible with different levels. So, you know, you're going to get a bunch of different Synchron monsters and then use them to then climb up your ladder. And TG Hyper Librarian, obviously whenever a Synchro monster is summoned, draw a card. He basically just allows you to carry on playing the game. From there, we're running 1 level 6, so Stardust Charge Warrior. When he's synchro summoned, you can draw a card, and you can also attack each of your opponent's special summon monsters once each. He's okay. I mean, I think the draw is sometimes necessary, the stepping stone is also sometimes necessary, and also he's got synergy with some of the other extra deck monsters. So running 2 level 6s, 1 Dawn Dragster for kind of that spell and trap negation on, you know, kind of ending board, 1 Shooting Riser Dragon. You know, so send the card from your deck to your graveyard to reduce his level, and he can synchro summon during your opponent's turn. Super solid. 1 Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon and 1 Cyframe Lord Omega. That's kind of like your, you know, monster negator and, you know, kind of hand ripping. Again, you could kind of substitute Omega for whatever you really wanted. From there we're in a couple of level 10s, so Stardust Warrior and Satellite Warrior. So Satellite Warrior is probably the easiest one. He's actually seen quite a lot of play. I think a lot of synchro decks are now kind of using him as in an access code talker sort of way, and I think he's a very, very solid addition to kind of like our toolbox. So when he's synchro summoned, you can target the cards your opponent controls up to the number of synchro monsters in your graveyard, pop him, he gains 1,000 attack for each one. If he's destroyed, you can summon up to 3 level 8 Warrior or Synchro or Stardust Synchro monsters with different names from your graveyard, but again, that doesn't really come up that often. Stardust Warrior's got a similar kind of when sent to graveyard effect where you can special summon a level 8 or lower Warrior Synchro monster from your extra deck. It's treated as a Synchro summon, so you can get a draw from Charge Warrior and stuff like that, so it's not terrible. Also, he's pretty good, so if a monster would be special summoned, you can tribute him, and then he comes back during the end phase, a bit like the traditional Stardust Dragon. Synchrons have definitely had better days. Just having to build the deck and work, the combos through without so many of the tools that they've had in the past does make me a little sad that they cannot truly reach their potential or maximum revs. The end board is formidable, but getting there through disruption is gonna take some luck, especially with the choke point that is Junk Speeder. Once your opponent has seen that line, I think there's pretty much no chance you're gonna, get it through again with, if they've got disruption. So unfortunately, it's a 2 for relevance. On the flip side of that, I do love the deck. Special summoning and drawing all over the place does put a smile on my face. So it's a biased 4 for the fun factor. The deck isn't too bad for cost, and you can definitely, make it even more budget friendly, especially in the extra deck should you wish. I've priced this up from TCG Player at about $200. So have Synchrons revved it up enough to be relevant, or just stalled by the meta side? Let me know and check out the other videos on the channel.